Hey everyone, I just wanted to go over rendering to movie files in case you had any questions on that. So I have a real simple animation here, my cool looping ball, and I have 48 frames. So, imagine that this is like what you're doing. You want to make sure that your resolution gate is always turned on. That's this in your viewport here. It's a blue ball with a white kind of box. What this shows is your camera size. So right now I'm at 960 by 540, but it really shows you what your camera's going to see. So you might need to zoom in or zoom out depending. If I turn this off, you can see, the edge of the grid is very close. It's still very close here, but you're going to change what we're seeing from the top and bottom. So you want to make sure nothing's cut off, etc., and that you have the best camera angle possible. Now that being said, 960 by 540 isn't that great of a resolution, so let's open up our render settings, and we'll get this set up for rendering as well. All right. So, render using Maya software. When you get into texturing a little bit, you might use Mental Ray, but for what we're doing and for almost anything, Maya software is okay. So, file name prefix. So, if this is Charrington Final, let's spell it right. Now, image format. This is going to depend if you have After Effects or if you need to render directly to a movie file. Because if you see, and this is actually a newer edition, a few versions ago, actually I think Maya 2014 does not allow you to render to a QuickTime. I would always recommend rendering to a QuickTime, or if you're fortunate enough to have After Effects, I would render to a Targa. The main difference is if you're rendering to single files for each frame, if something goes wrong with your render or if a file becomes corrupt, you can just start over and pick up from the frame that was actually corrupt. So let's say you were rendering 500 frames and at 499 something happened, your computer shut down. Well, we can log back in and just do 499 and 500. If you're rendering only to a QuickTime movie, if you've waited that 2 hours or whatever it is to get it to render and it crashes, your whole video is corrupt and you have to start over. For the sake of time, I will do QuickTime. Because we're not doing files, it's going to just be name.extension. I'll show you how to do Targa files in a second. Then we need to scroll down, frame range, frame 1, and mine is actually to 48. That'll depend on what you're actually looking for here, or how long your animation is. And then if we scroll down, renderable camera, perspective, make sure that matches. It's really important. Nothing is a bigger pain than rendering your whole thing to find out you did it in the wrong camera. And then I'm going to do 1280 by 720. You can do 1920, 1080. I'm going to turn up my resolution just because this is one of our final projects. But you can see that my camera here adjusted, and we should be all set to go. That's as easy as it is. It'll tell you up here the path that it's going to take, but we don't need to remember it now because we'll see it down here. We go into our rendering dropdown and then render. Batch render. You don't need to hit the option box. Of course, it's a student version, so you have to click OK, but then it will start rendering. You'll see down here, it'll say result, rendering with Maya software, and then it'll start to count up, so the percentage of how much you have done. I'll let this wait so I can show you the location, but next to this black or gray bar is our script editor button here, and you can click on that, and that's opening it up. Once it starts going, you'll be able to see the path that it's going to take. Here we go. So those are each frame that it's doing, and you can see we're doing users, Jennifer Charrington, documents, Maya projects. So that's where you'll be able to find your final QuickTime. Okay, that was nice and fast, so I'll just show you real quickly if we're going to do to single files. You want to go into your render settings. Oops. I accidentally clicked hypershade. We want render settings, the fourth clapboard. You can also go window, rendering editors, render settings. But instead of a QuickTime, I'm going to do Targa files. You need to make sure that it's name.number.extension. I hate that it gives you any other options, but it's going to be Charrington and Final 1.targa. There aren't any software programs that can open up a number file type, so just name.number.extension. You can leave everything else how it is. Start frame 1, final frame 48, or whatever again that your animation is. Check your camera, perspective view, close, and we can do the same thing. Render, batch render. Alrighty, I'm going to let this pause while that renders, and then I'll show you what to do next. Alrighty, so now I've opened up After Effects and I've got all of my files, my Targa files here. So what we're going to do is set up our composition and import our file. So we can go to Composition, New Composition. You can name it whatever you want. I have a tendency to use uppercase letters to go between words rather than spaces or underscores. And then we did 1280 by 720. So it's important to know that you're matching. Now my frame rate should be 24. Oops, not 245. Here we go. 24. And since I'm only dealing with 2 seconds, I can change this to 2. Now, you have to have all these different numbers here. So this is how it reads it. So make sure you've got milliseconds, seconds, minutes, hours. So you need to have all those numbers in there. And then we can hit OK. All right, so now I know I've got my composition, it's set up well, so now I can import my files. So you can either right mouse click or you can go to File, Import, File. You just need one because you know how we did name.number.extension. That is so After Effects can recognize it as a sequence and read it as an animation. So we've got to go through our folder here. Here we are. Now you want to grab the very first one in the sequence. I don't know why these are out of order. But grab one and then make sure to check on Targa sequence and then open. Straight is fine, so you can hit OK. And you'll see now it says the name of my file and we're 1 through 48. So make sure that every frame is in there. Now unfortunately you can see it says 30 frames per second. We can change that. Right mouse click on the file here, Interpret Footage, Main. And we want to change that to 24. Assume this frame rate. And then hit OK. So now we're set, 24, 24. Then I just click and drag down my files here. I think my After Effects froze. Yeah. All right, let's give it 1 second. All right, so again, drag this down. There we go. Should work for you on the first time. I think my computer's struggling today. You can hit spacebar to actually play it. It's not going to play in real time because it's actually rendering, and you can see this green bar is it thinking and trying to comprehend each frame. So once it kind of goes through once, then it'll play at the correct speed. Takes a little bit of time, but you can see. All right, so then we need to render this out to a movie. So we go to Composition, Add to Render Queue. Opens up down here in your render queue. We want to click on the word lossless. This is where you can pick the format. So I'm going to do a QuickTime. And then the important part here is to go to the format options. We need to compress our movie. The video codec animation allows for very large files because again we're dealing in frames and we need to compress the data, and this doesn't really compress it. So I like to do an H.264. Your assignment calls for an MPEG-4 video. I will allow either of them. Then I'll hit OK. Hit OK again. And then output to, I'll just do this on my desktop, Charrington Final, render. And then you can sit and wait for it to render. After Effects makes the most awesome noise when it's done rendering. But based upon how my computer, oh, no, we're good. I was thinking it was going to take a long time. So now you know it's rendered. So now I can go to my desktop, Charrington Final, it's opening up, but anyway, you'll have your final movie file here. All right, so that's what I'm looking for when it comes to rendering videos. You'll want to make sure to probably put your character in that sphere that we talked about earlier, or giving it a background in After Effects. Anything besides a pure black or pure white, so we can actually see the shadow and the highlight on your character. Alrighty, good luck. I'll talk to you soon.